The definition of bullying is aggression. That's what the clinical and legal definition of bullying. Bullying is aggression, it says in the first line. And it's identified by 3 criteria: an imbalance of power. Someone's trying to have psychological power. They love driving you crazy. They love making you angry. They love upsetting you. So it's psychological power imbalance. There's repeated over time, which means it's again and again and again and again. It's regular. It's an ongoing pervasiveness. But it's intent to do harm. It's not by accident, but they do it on purpose. They want you to get upset.
High school, my freshman year, is when I was faced with bullying, and it was terrible. I am half Guatemalan, I'm half black. I've always been a lighter skin tone and had a softer curl, and for whatever reason, these girls just sought me out and made my life miserable to the point where I was suicidal, I was depressed, I was beyond unhappy and lost, and wasn't secure in my own self at the same time. Just, you know, you're a teenager, you're freshman year, and at the same time, at my home life, my parents were going through a divorce, and my mom had recently been hit by a car.
The term came from the Dutch in around the 16th century, and they used it all the way up until the 18th century to mean something pretty significant, like a lover or maybe a best friend.
You know what I find ironic? The word bully was invented in 1560, and it originally meant loved one. So if I wanted to say I love you, I would say I bully you. If I wanted you to meet all the loved ones in my life, I would say come meet my bullies. And almost throughout the history of the word bully, it always meant something positive. Just 100 years ago, Teddy Roosevelt would call the White House the bully pulpit, the greatest platform to do the most good. He would say, bully for you, good for you. But today it means the opposite. It means enemy, the person I hate.
So when I was bullied, I was bullied for several reasons. I had acne, so that was one. I walked with a limp. I have foot deformities, which caused me not to walk properly. And then I was overweight because I coped with being bullied through food. So it was just like a trifecta of all the different reasons of why I could get bullied. That lasted all throughout grade school, high school. Some of the nicknames that were thrown around as far as like the playground and the locker halls were like tits, hooters, because not only was I overweight, but I had large male breast tissue. That just really impacted my self-esteem. I think I would always walk with my head down. I was always scared of like social situations or putting myself out there. Somebody once commented, a coworker once said that I have the personality of Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. And as you know, Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore is the character that's always in the background. You know, he doesn't really ever talk. And then when people talk to him, he's just like, just thanks for noticing me. Because I was just so scared of getting bullied.
But that's always been around. People have been motivated with intent to bother. It's called dominance behavior. As a sociologist, that's what I was trained in. This is classic dominance. And you see it in the corporate America all the time. In fact, most leaders on the CEO level know how to psychologically dominate another person through carrot or stick, which is incentives like rewards or incentives by way of punishment. And bullying lives on the punishment side of dominance behavior.
Yeah, I actually experienced bullying when I was little, and it's weird how many years later it is now and it's still sensitive. it still affects me to a certain point. And you know what? The funny thing is that they say sticks and stones may break your bones, but words can never hurt you. And it's completely the opposite, in my opinion. I can go round for round, punch for punch with guys bigger than me, which I do every day, and it has no effect on me. Ice packs can fix it. I forget that it ever happened. But when I was little, some boys on the bus made fun of me. And it's funny, they called me face girl, which is like, what does that even mean? Everybody has a face, right? It's just like the dumbest thing. But when you're little and you know like what they're trying to say, they're trying to make fun of you. You know their intention is to hurt you. I had braces, like, I don't know, maybe I was awkward. I have no idea because I didn't think that of myself at the time. But it's funny because the more they bully you, you start to believe it.
I had no one to talk to. I felt that I had no one to talk to. And that feeling was horrible because who do you tell that these girls are being mean to me? My mom that's laying in a hospital bed?
And, you know, it's like, I tried to always be strong. So it's like, oh, I don't want to go tell somebody this is happening. Like, I can just handle it. But the truth is, I should have told somebody. Not only just to make it stop, but just to have like the reassurance when you're at that like tender state of development to know that like these kids are doing it because they are actually hurting, or like something happened to them, or they are feeling some kind of like insecurities, and they're projecting on you, they're taking out on you. It's actually not. I needed to hear that it wasn't me, that I was beautiful. And while I was surrounded by loving parents, they didn't know. So how could they even help me? So even now it gives me insecurities that my boyfriend has to deal with sometimes, where it's like I need to hear from him that I'm beautiful because I now have my own insecurities about it, you know? It's crazy, it still affects me.
People really just notice and pick up on those little subtle cues. And if you're a bully, then they really hone in on it. And then you then become even a target for them. You're like fair game because they notice that, and they know that you're easy prey.
I felt very alone, and I felt like although the problems for me were making my life hard, I did feel like the complaint was insignificant of like, these girls are being mean to me. But they were being so mean to me that I didn't want to live anymore. You know what I mean? So I definitely needed someone to reach out to. And when my report card came to the house, that was the first time that I had anything less than A's and B's. And I was doing really bad in school, especially for being so excited about this school. That's when my mom sat me down and was like, what's going on? And I just started crying and told her what was going on. And my parents showed up the next day at school. The school told us we will assign her a security guard that will keep her safe until we figure it out. We're gonna talk to their parents. We're gonna, figure it out. They didn't, and that happened. That day, I remember walking, the lunch bell rang, and I used to want to get my stuff out of the locker and get to the classroom so I didn't have to like pass anyone. So I would always wait for that hall to open so I can go in and get my stuff and go. So I was in the hall by myself, shut my locker and looked, and all 8 girls were at the doorway walking in. I remember they wore white t-shirts and sweatpants, like ready to throw down. I remember they all had their hair slicked back in buns. And then they walked up to me. I froze. And all I remember is one of the girls saying, your parents aren't here now to save you. And then just taking a punch, and I don't remember anything else after that, honestly. The next thing I remember is waking up in the nurse's office. I remember looking down, and there was blood everywhere, and I could see my jaw. Like I could literally, like, you know when you have something on your nose and you can like see it peripherally? I could see my mouth. And I like just freaked out, and I reached for the phone. Remember, we used to have to push 9. I like remember these details specifically. I pushed 9, called my mom. She said hello, and all I said was mommy, and she hung up so fast. And my mom was in a wheelchair and hadn't driven in 2 or 3 years. Had knee braces on both knees and drove to Monroe And I remember hearing her screaming in the hallway, like, Kita Francesca Maggette, where are you? And then I just started crying, and she heard my cry and came in, and the nurse was like trying to get my statement. Like, are you serious? Have you guys called 911 yet? And my mom pushed the lady and took me to the hospital, and I was at the hospital for a week. And I never went back to that school.
And I never did anything about it. I just allowed it to happen. I would keep my mouth shut, or I would laugh it off, act like it didn't affect me. But it continued to just open up those scars. And just, it reinforced the low self-esteem. To not speak up, to not say anything, because there were at times when I did try to address the bullying, and then the bullying then escalated into physical, and I even got beat up a couple times for trying to stand up for myself. And when that happens, you learn to just keep your mouth shut, to just let the bullies have their way. And as an adult, this is a very unhealthy view of the world, to be scared, to let people step all over you, to get taken advantage of, to get manipulated. We see this play out as adults, sometimes within families, siblings bullying one another to take advantage or, get their way. We see this in the workforce. So I didn't take certain management positions, when I became an adult. There was a potential, I graduated with honors from grad school with my, when I graduated with my master's in social work. And I didn't want to be the valedictorian because it required speaking in front of the class. So I avoided that. Now I teach mindfulness. And it took me about 6 months of really just grappling and wrestling with my own mind to just, can I do this? Can I not?
Kids try to get help by reporting it, but the more they report it, the worse that it gets. And it's a sad thing because they realize, man, I've done everything I know to do. I've told my parents, I've told the teachers, I've told the principal, I've told my peers, and it's not stopping. In fact, it's getting worse. I guess I'm just gonna die. And so a very logical to them solution to their problem is to either kill their perpetrator or kill themselves. And so they resort to homicide or suicide. And if they can't bring themselves to that, they might self-medicate through cutting, which is known as non-suicidal self-injurious behavior, maybe alcohol or drugs. Maybe they spin down into a depression. They might try to go to therapy.
I think in general, people bully someone else because of their own insecurity. In my research, in my experience, a bully is someone who's just really insecure about something in their own life or unhappy with something in their own life, so they kind of project it onto someone else.
I'm asked all the time, like, why do people bully? And I would say, well, the reason why people want to have dominance over another person is because they hate losing. They hate being on the low end of the social spectrum, and they love winning. They love being popular on the high end of the social spectrum. People like having power. And if you give them power, they don't want to give it back. So they're trying to maintain that hierarchical level of authority over another.
A lot of bullies don't have the best home life, and then I think there's just some kids that are mean, they're hurting inside. The anger is coming from fear, emotional pain, or loneliness, and that's usually where anger comes from. And I think a lot of times you see with bullies is that their esteem is low, so they're trying to bring the esteem of the person they're bullying down to their level, so there's sort of like a homeostasis.
So one of the things we know is that bullying comes from trauma, abuse, and neglect, and from generational trauma, abuse, and neglect. So it's in the home because mom and dad experience it, or just mom experienced it and there's no dad, or whatever it might be. There's a wonderful phrase: suffering that is not transformed is transmitted. And that's the thesis of the whole thing right there. I just had a client last night. He's a great kid who had to bail out of a really great Ivy League college because he was just having so much social anxiety freshman year, couldn't complete it. Really struggling. We've been doing amazing work. He's been working so hard, so deep, great parents. And he had this camping trip for his 20th birthday. And one of the guys was just, he has this tendency to sort of speak for the group, like, oh no, we can't do that because if we go and have that burger now, we won't be able to do this and this at the campsite. And so he'll just speak for the whole group and say, instead of I think, what do you guys think? Hey, birthday boy, what do you think? Right? So my client was getting kind of tense. Then this guy noticed it and started kind of saying, Michael's getting really uptight. You're so uptight. He just started picking at him and kind of poking at him like, I see what's going on and I'm not going to do anything to help it. And at some point, after a day and a half of this, my client, who's usually very shy and can't speak up for himself, risked saying, hey, this is not cool. It's my birthday. And you're controlling, you're making things worse, pointing shit out to me that I already know, I don't need you to tell me, all this stuff. And his friend, who was doing all this, broke down in tears and said that he's just having a really hard time, that his life is just not turning out the way he wanted it to, and he's got so much going on. And my client, rather than like, ooh, I didn't ask for this, I wanted to fight, or walking away from it, or he just put his arms around him and embraced him and held him for like 3 minutes. And I said, that's who you are. You are a compassionate person. That's why life has been so hard for you, because you feel so much. But look how great it is when you find the capacity to understand other people and realize that suffering is not just you. Everyone's walking around with feelings they're too afraid to feel. And you open them up, and then you embrace them and felt them with them. I said, I can't, you think your trip was ruined. I think it was the best trip you ever had.
This is how you see it in the animal kingdom. There's a pecking order with chickens. Dogs are pack animals. It's in all of nature, including like gorillas. There's always someone who's the head hog of the trough. It's a struggle for dominance. That's why people bully.
I think in human nature, in human behavior, just whether it's bullying or whether it's a kid having a tantrum, which I deal with plenty in this line of work, or even you see it in adults. If the squeaky wheel gets the oil kind of analogy, right? They teach the kid, you teach the parent to ignore the behavior, right? But what is the kid gonna do? The kid wants something, so they escalate the behavior, right? So that the tantrum gets more and more extreme. It's a tricky question, because at what point do you stop the act of listening? When the kid starts, hurting himself or herself or somebody else, or breaking things, but and then this is where working with the parents comes in, having those consequences, right? And working with parents to keep in place those consistent, age-appropriate, fair consequences. If the child continues to push and just escalate, whether it's a bully or whether it's a tantrum in the home, if they escalate to the point where it's out of the parent's control, even if they're doing everything right, there's going to then become a natural consequence, right? So that would be, okay, little Johnny threw a brick through the window now into the neighbor's apartment window or whatever, and now the police are there, so there's a natural set of consequences in life.
Once I was bullied in high school, it became obviously something very interesting to me. Like, what happened? What was my mental state? Why didn't I stick up for myself? Why didn't I stand up for myself? Why didn't I talk to anyone? And then also trying to understand what was so wrong in some other girls' brains that they just looked at me and wanted to beat me up. Like, that didn't make sense to me. So I really, really wanted to understand. And that's when I got very interested in psychology and psychiatry and started going to both, so that I could just kind of understand. And at the end of it all, it's just about insecurity, and it's just about not liking who you are or something in your life, and you take it out on someone else. And, you know, being able to understand that now makes it a lot easier to just digest, for sure.
One technique that I learned in grad school, I have my master's degree in social work, and there's various psychology courses that are required as to graduate. And in one of the courses, there's this concept called decentering. And that's when you take a step back from whatever emotions you're experiencing, or whatever thoughts, or whatever unpleasant situation happened, and you just kind of look at it from a detached space. That it was a strategy in order to not take the information personal, or the story that you're telling yourself. Comedians or people who perform on stage do this whenever they have hecklers. They decenter, they have the stage presence, and then they have their everyday presence. And they're able to do that by decentering.
Typically we use positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement when we're talking about parenting styles and things, but it applies in anything in life, right? So in the bully scenario, the bully asks for your lunch money, and you say no. You draw the line there. So then they will use tactics. Let's say they give you a wedgie, or they push you, and you're still saying no. You're not reinforcing that behavior. Now, if they keep escalating, at some point it gets to the point where, let's say, they're punching the other kid, and now the kid's scared, and now they're saying, okay, here's the lunch money. Well, you just reinforced that behavior. That was a negative reinforcement. You said, oh, you punching me worked. Now you get my lunch money.
I think the way that our society can stop this whole bullying problem that seems to be worse and worse is really to victim-proof ourselves. See, if we're not offended, there's no conflict. It's offense that is at the root of every single conflict. And we are in control of how offended we are by something. In fact, an offense can only cause subjective harm, meaning it's subject to what I think about it. And if I think they must not do that, they should not do that, well, then I'm going to upset myself because I have rigid demands of how they should treat me. But if I just give up the grip of demands and I just simply say, you know what, I'd like them to not do that, but it's a free country, I'm not going to take offense to it, then we won't get upset, we won't be offended, and we won't drag someone else into a conflict. There's an old proverb that says, above all else, guard your heart, for out of your heart flows the issues of life. And the only reason why we have issues is because we're not guarding our heart. We're giving people complete access to emotionally wound and trigger us. And it's all through our demanding thoughts that they must not. Now, we need to put a wall up between them and our hearts, and it's the walls in our mind. It's our mind that has the power to protect our emotions. We give up the grip of demands, we become more flexible in our thinking, and we forgive folks. And we should stop putting expectations on others. My life has become a whole lot happier when I lowered my expectations of others, and I'm just pleasantly surprised when they treat me like a friend.
When I did the work and had to go through, like, where did this problem start? My brother was a martial artist growing up. He was in Kung Fu forever. I was his dummy. So I got swept all the time. I got put on my back all the time. I got him on top of me all the time. And it sucked, and my dad's a Marine. So it's funny, I literally was just at my dad's house, and I was like, why did you not put me in martial arts? Like, why was I in dance and gymnastics and Javon was in Kung Fu? And my dad said, and literally he had a tear come to his eye and he said, I didn't think you would need it.
You know what's amazing to me? We have left the golden rule, the original social and emotional learning instruction. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And if you really geek out on the golden rule, you'll realize that it is instruction to help you deal with mean people. It doesn't teach you how to be nice to nice people. It teaches you how to be nice to mean people. And it teaches you basically what Aristotle called the ethic of reciprocity. He says, instead of being mean to mean people, be nice to mean people, because as you're nice to mean people, they'll want to be nice to you. And that's what I try to demonstrate when I tour the country and I speak to millions of kids, or I have online videos with almost 300 million views now, translated in 20 different languages. It's demonstrating how the golden rule works. It was the first instruction to teach us how to keep the peace. And we need to go back to that golden rule. In fact, everything that we're teaching in the anti-bullying umbrella is be mean to mean people. Call them a bully, which is name calling, and try to get them in trouble with the law, which is another form of dominance behavior. So when we victim-proof communities, when we empower kids with the golden rule, hey, treat your enemy like a friend. Don't be friends with them, but be friendly to them. When we empower them with those type of skills, they grow in resilience, their confidence goes through the roof, and they now have a skill that will help them the rest of their life, because life is full of mean people.
I like to look at things in the micro, because I think the micro obviously affects the macro. If we only concentrate on the macro, we don't see the micro, right? So what you teach your children is what they will put out into society. I believe in the individual. I think if people are, this sounds corny, but kind to one another and taught to be kind to one another, and take every interaction they have with someone and see that person as another human being with dignity and respect, that we can get to the point where maybe it's not bullying.
But I find that the modern problem of bullying has an ancient solution in the origins of the term, and that's to love your enemies. Do good to those who hurt you, make fun of you, or spitefully use you. Be kind to them, because that will take advantage of the law of reciprocity. And as you're being nice to them, they will want to be nice to you, and they will have a hard time staying mean. That's the solution. Love your enemies.
Now, at times, there are chances where you're not able to address the bullying. For example, if it's a stranger. I shared a story where I was walking down the street and I had my visually impaired cane out. And there was a car full of young kids that leaned out the car and, screamed at me that I shouldn't be out and about. So the moment that happens and it triggers this whole flood of emotions, thanks to my mindfulness practice, I have a loving kindness meditation that I can revert to. And I suggest everyone, I suggest loving kindness to everyone. And it is when you actually hold an image of yourself, as you can close your eyes, or you could look at yourself in the mirror, however you would like to go about it, and then you just start wishing yourself wishes of wellness, wishes of health, wishes of loving kindness. The purpose of it is that by silently repeating these sayings to yourself, they cultivate a loving frame of mind.
I think the number one reason we can't solve the bullying problem is the word bully. I think if we retire the word, it would do us well. I'm a sociologist, and I was never taught about bullying psychology. I was taught about dominance behavior. This whole bullying psychology is actually pseudo-psychology. It is not in touch with any other discipline in science. It's not in touch with cognitive behavioral therapy, rational motive behavioral therapy, Rogerian behavioral therapy, logotherapy. There's no serious school of psychology that would look at the anti-bullying psychology and say that's healthy. Because the anti-bullying psychology that has been invented by pop culture basically says this: I'm entitled to a life without mean people, and I'm not responsible for my feelings, someone else is. And the government or the governing authorities must protect me from mean people or my own emotional problems. And if someone bothers me, I will simply tell an authority and they will take care of my social problems. That's crazy.
I think all of our parents have always said to us, well, just ignore them and you won't, you won't give them what they want, right? What they want is that attention. And I don't know if that always works. I think sometimes that does work, sometimes it doesn't work. And we talk about interpretation of what bullying is. I think that, we're kind of living in a society now where it's good that we're aware of this. And on the other side of the coin, I guess, is that people are a little hyper vigilant to it, I feel. And so it's like their antennae are up, and then they're going, I'm being bullied in this, I'm being bullied here, So I guess bullying really is in the eye of the beholder. If you don't like the way it's making you feel, then that's not okay, right? And you need to address that with that person directly, and then but that brings us back to the whole thing about, well, then are you giving the bully exactly what they need? If you go tell somebody, if you tell a teacher, then are you a snitch? And now the bullying gets worse.
If I tell you, and you're suicidal, if I tell you that your solution to your problem is in someone else's hands, you will be more suicidal. But if I can empower you and teach you how you're contributing to your own suffering and how you can stop suffering by changing your thinking about that negative behavior and how to respond to the mean people in your life, then all of a sudden you're going to be empowered. You're going to learn how to solve your own social problem. And that's education. You give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach him how to fish, he eats for a lifetime. And that's what education should be. It should be teaching children how to solve their social problems. We do it for reading, writing, arithmetic. Why not relational problems? That's the fourth missing R in schools.
I've actually been thinking a lot about that lately. Like when I was younger, when I was in high school, let's say, was I being bullied on this sports team, or were these guys just like busting my chops, And maybe my reaction is that of like, and I think people still feel this way sometimes with me, is like, oh, we like the reaction we get out of you. You're fun. It's fun, and people do that with their best friends or with family members, It's like they like to get the reaction of the person. But if the person is interpreting it a certain way, that changes everything. And I feel like it kind of just feeds into that relationship. So then the bully gets more power, and I think it mushrooms into something more serious. And then I think it really could truly be called bullying.
A lot of times therapists don't know how to treat these kids because they're using the word bully. And if they just would have used another term, like they called me a name or they excluded me, the therapist would know how to work with that kid. Don't care whether someone calls you a name. Don't put your sense of identity in their words towards you. If you're not invited somewhere, what else can you do? But a lot of times, therapists don't even know how to help kids, because what therapists have been taught to deal with bullying is take a legal approach, not a psychological one, a legal one. Punish the bully to the full extent of the law. And so that's why kids feel helpless.
So it's just been a struggle of overcome a low self-esteem. And what has really helped me overcome that was when I started to practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in my early 20s.
Ladies and gentlemen, all three judges scored this fight 30-27 in favor for the winner by unanimous decision. Out of the red corner, Tito
I think emotionally, knowing that you can protect yourself gives you the automatic confidence, not the physical part. It really is from within. I had the physical my whole life. It didn't do anything for me. You know what I mean? Not until I was able to sync this and this together to know who I am, where my weaknesses lie, what I need to address, and how to address it came from inside. And I think having a background or knowing a skill that helps you protect yourself, self-defense, martial arts, just automatically gives you an edge of knowing who you are and what you will and won't stand for.
And that's when I really started to have confidence in myself. It's weird, like I felt like an inner strength starting to develop. Like my body was becoming strong, and I was learning certain self-defense techniques. And then when I began to start practicing them on friends and being able to submit them or easily control them, it just was like a huge boost to just my overall confidence. That, wow, like if a fight happens now, I can take care of myself. I can handle myself. It was almost like I got inoculated now against bullying.
My life took me where it needed to go, all the way circling back to what am I passionate about? And that came from being an empowered woman and me doing the work. I realized that there was something that was following me in my life, and that was not standing up for myself. It happened in school. It happened with my own brother. Just like, leave me alone. Like, I would never say that. It happened at work. I got sexually harassed, didn't know how to deal with it, froze. Was in an abusive relationship, didn't know how to get out of it, froze. And so I really, really wanted to do the work to get through this. I had the realization that this thing is not going away, so I have to address it. It's not something I can put away, or it's gonna be there all the time. So I went to counseling, went to therapy, got a life coach, did the work, dealt through it, pulled it all out, organized it, took it in, accepted everything, wanted to change, wanted to be empowered from within, not on the outside, and became a martial artist. Started with jiu-jitsu, started at 10th Planet, totally by accident. Actually auditioned for this thing called grappling dolls, and then I got 3 months of free training, jiu-jitsu, and I was like, I don't know what this is. These people are rolling on the ground trying to choke each other. I'll watch it, but I don't want to do that. And then I became very curious and interested and saw man, if you're on the bottom of someone, you really have a lot of power. And so then I started taking the class and was really good at it. Surprisingly, I had no clue that I was a fighter. I had no idea. I really didn't know. And I think we all are born with that, but sometimes different things are the things that highlight them and pull them out. And my athleticism compiled with just being a technical athlete and now learning technical stuff to protect myself. Oh my God. My life changed. Your hands back. You have to get wrist control. It's very specific. I realized I had a knack for teaching others, especially martial arts, when it came to just volunteering. I started with a couple friends and we just wanted to empower women and started teaching self-defense classes. And then me and those friends kind of parted ways. We didn't have the same idea as far as empowering women, and that was something I really wanted to do. I felt so unfortunate as a young girl, not knowing what to do when I was faced with someone who did not like me and was mean to me. That alone was shocking. Wait, why? What's, you know what I mean? So when I started volunteering my time on weekends and teaching at Team Victory, my boyfriend's gym, and just doing 2-hour seminars every weekend for free, I realized this is something I have to do. I'm good at it. These women are coming back. They're bringing friends, they're bringing aunts, they're bringing sisters. All of a sudden the gym was full. And I was like, I'm onto something. This is something that every woman should know and every woman should feel walking down the street, is just confidence within her own skin. And I needed to give that to people. So that's when I knew.
Sometimes when you get into a predicament or a situation like being bullied, you're kind of ashamed. You're kind of timid to talk to a counselor, to a teacher, to your parent. You don't want to look like you're a chicken or something. So she started Team Bully Buster, where she was able to provide a service that, look, if your child's been bullied and they need someone to talk to and help, well, her company would intervene and kind of find out more and get the school involved. And then she would do these summer boot camps, or once a month, where she opened up these boot camps for martial art, where a lot of her friends were professional fighters, and they would come and participate in helping out these kids.
So at Team Bully Buster, we teach jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, wrestling, and boxing, and then also fitness. So strength and conditioning, fitness, agility, pretty much just a well-rounded athlete, everything that they would need.
Yeah, you know what? When I met Kita, of course, everybody goes through a hardship and they have that PTSD. And she really had a hard PTSD. Not just a combination of her being bullied in high school by all those girls, but almost losing her mom and her going to a coma. And of course, through women going through bad relationship, abusive relationship. So combine all those, I felt like she was still kind of carrying that on her shoulders. So when I met her, of course, some people don't want to just express those, but you could feel it, and then after a while, she was sharing with me what she went through. But I believe through the process of her training and her getting ready for a fight, you have to get tough. You got to get stronger, especially if you're going to attack to want to accomplish something. You got to go straight on. And I believe that's what she did. And the more she came and trained and practiced, and I truly believe her stepping in the ring for the first time in her life really empowered her. For anybody that's been in the ring, that's the most empowering thing. She's teaching these women and children, and she had to be an example for herself. So whatever she had that was carrying from the years she went through, her bullying and all the hardship she went through, she was able to meet it with the new version of Kita. And that new version of Kita is a powerful woman, an amazing woman. So a woman that's not gonna let anybody put her down or step on her. And she learned to evolve from that. And ever since then, I get to see her every day at the class, with the kids, with the women at home. And she's become so strong, just the way she talks, her opinion, and the way she addresses situations in her life. I truly believe she's become such a strong woman, a powerful, empowered woman.
So the way the program works is usually, typically it's by word of mouth, which is such a blessing because we have so many people that just refer friends and more friends and more friends and more friends. So we'll get a call about a student. We ask what age they are. That way we know what class they come into. And we tell them what they need to bring. And then they come and they sign up. And class starts with a warm-up, just getting everyone acclimated and joints moving, muscles moving. If there's any new students, we welcome them to the team and have everyone introduce themselves to the new person. And then we get into the lesson. So if it's jiu-jitsu day, we'll either work on a submission or a defense or movement. If it's boxing, we're focusing on that. If it's Muay Thai day, we focus on Muay Thai. Fridays is strength and conditioning. So it's more like agility and obstacle courses and strength and conditioning. So each day is something new. No class is ever the same. And I think that's what makes our program and our gym so lovely, is that there's so much information and none of it's redundant. You're not gonna be like, oh, I already learned that. There's gonna be something to go with it.
Oh, I've seen, and just seeing the children and the women to come into this gym and being so timid, but Coach Kita is so amazing that she uses her knowledge and her skill and her past experience. And she shares it with these women and children where you're getting all this. It's like all these ingredients in one package. You're learning how to defend yourself. You're learning how to fight. You're learning how to stand up for yourself. You're learning how to be empowered. And now you're seeing it from the women and children that they walk out of this gym, their head is up in the air, their chest is pumped, and they feel good. And whatever situation these kids are going through at school, they're willing to address it. They're not running away from the problems. They're attacking the problems. And then for women, that whatever they were going through, some of these women had their own PTSD or whatever life circumstances. Now there's a cure, and Coach Kita found something to really give them, to really empower them. So without medication and without nothing wrong with counseling, but with verbal contact and just physical contact and learning to empower. It was a great mixture and combination to make these women strong and these children. And yes, I definitely believe when they walk out of here, they're so empowered. I see it every day. I see it when they talk. I see it when they come in. They come in very shy, very timid in the beginning. Now they're talking. Now they can talk to people. Now they can address things. Now they're not shy about certain things. And that's the great thing about Team Bully Buster and what Coach Kita has done. She's really changed her life all the way around.
The feeling and the woman that I am now and that I became was an option for every woman and child to be. And if I could do it with all of the baggage and scars that I had, anybody can protect themselves. I made the first gym that's for women and children to learn how to protect themselves. At the end, I'm like, whoa, I'm doing this. Like, I did this. That's magnificent. It's cool. I don't think God would have gotten me this far if I couldn't handle it.